We need to talk about the richest NFL player who has ever lived. And no, we are not talking about Tom Brady, not Patrick Mahomes, not even Jerry Jones. We are talking about a quarterback who made $25,000 his rookie year. A guy who needed a second job during the offseason just to pay his mortgage and feed his 3 kids. His total career earnings from professional football came to roughly $600,000 across 11 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys. Today, Roger Staubach is worth an estimated $600 million. That is 1,000 times what the NFL paid him. He is richer than Tom Brady, richer than Cristiano Ronaldo, richer than Shaq, and richer than David Beckham. And the craziest part? He started building that fortune while he was still the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Between games, between Super Bowls, between some of the most iconic moments in football history. But this isn't the story you have heard before. Because when we dug into the actual SEC filings, the company records, and the deals that never made the headlines, we found something nobody talks about. Roger Staubach gave away 88% of his own company before selling it for over $600 million. He attracted a single $1 million investment that returned roughly $70 million. He lost an estimated $175 million on a Bahamian island resort that was never built, and he turned down a $750,000 contract extension from the Cowboys because he thought office buildings had a better return than touchdowns. This is the real story behind the greatest business empire any professional athlete has ever built. To understand how Roger Staubach ended up in commercial real estate, we need to start with a color blindness test at the United States Naval Academy. Staubach was born in 1942 in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was an only child. His father was a traveling salesman. His mother worked as a secretary at General Motors for 30 years. They shared a modest home in Silverton, a small suburb, where Roger slept in the same bedroom as his grandmother until he was 14 years old. He was a natural athlete who played football, basketball, and baseball in high school, captaining all 3 teams. His real dream was playing professional baseball for the Cincinnati Reds. But football at the New Mexico Military Institute changed his trajectory. He led their team to a 9-1 season, got accepted to the Naval Academy, and in 1963 won the Heisman Trophy as a junior. He was one of the youngest Heisman winners in history. The Dallas Cowboys drafted him that same year, using an unusual future selection pick in the 10th round. But here is where the story gets interesting. The week after his Heisman Trophy win, in late November 1963, Staubach was scheduled to appear on the cover of Life magazine. That cover never happened. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22, 1963, and the magazine ran the assassination coverage instead. To this day, Staubach remains the last player from a military academy to win the Heisman Trophy. After graduating from the Naval Academy in 1965 with an engineering degree, doctors discovered something that would reshape his entire future. Roger Staubach was colorblind, specifically red-green colorblind. This meant he could not distinguish between port and starboard lights on a ship, which disqualified him from line officer positions. He became the Naval Academy's first graduate commissioned directly into the Supply Corps because of this condition. And then he did something that nobody expected. He volunteered for a 1-year tour of duty in Vietnam. He could have stayed stateside. Instead, he served as a Supply Corps lieutenant at Da Nang and Chu Lai, supervising 41 enlisted men and supporting Marines in the I Corps' tactical zone. He carried a football with him almost everywhere, asking anyone he could find to go out for a pass, just to stay sharp for a career that was 4 years away. When Staubach finally joined the Dallas Cowboys in 1969, he was a 27-year-old rookie. He had already been married for 4 years, already a father of 3, and already a combat veteran. His rookie salary was $25,000. For context, today's Cowboys starting quarterback Dak Prescott earned $60 million a year. Staubach's highest salary ever in his final season of 1979 was $160,000. Now here is a detail that gets left out of every profile we have ever seen. In his first 4 months at the Naval Academy, Staubach had accumulated 150 negative marks, demerits, for homesickness and rule breaking. He was close to getting expelled. He came back from Christmas break with a completely different attitude. That same discipline carried into every decision he made after football. Into 1970, after his first NFL season, Staubach put on a suit every morning and walked into the offices of Henry S. Miller Company, one of the largest independent commercial real estate firms in Dallas. Not as a celebrity endorser, but as a working broker. He earned his real estate license, learned how to analyze leases, and studied the business from the inside for 6 consecutive off-seasons. And then came the moment that changed everything. Around 1974, a colleague asked Staubach to show a corporate client a building called Mockingbird Towers in Dallas, a property that Miller's firm was leasing. Staubach agreed, then stopped himself. What if Mockingbird Towers was not the right fit? What if better options existed across town at a lower price? The client would never know, because every broker in Dallas only showed tenants properties listed by their own firm. The broker's loyalty was to the landlord, not to the company paying rent. Staubach later described this as the moment that defined his life. He surveyed every available building in Dallas for that client, instead of steering them to his employer's listing. The question he asked sounds obvious today. Why not represent the tenant instead of the landlord? Now here is something we want to be honest about, because accuracy matters on this channel. Roger Staubach did not invent tenant representation. Julian Studley established the first dedicated tenant representation firm in New York City in 1954, 2 decades before Staubach's realization. Staubach acknowledged this publicly, saying he looked up to Studley when starting his own company. What Staubach actually pioneered was scaling tenant representation nationally with a completely different operating model. Salaried employees instead of commission-based brokers. A client satisfaction guarantee. And Staubach himself refused to take personal commissions on business he brought in through his fame and connections. Distinction matters. He did not claim to have invented the concept. He just built the biggest company around it that anyone had ever seen. If you are the kind of viewer who pays attention to the real details behind the headlines, you are exactly who we make these documentaries for. We are a small channel, just 250 subscribers right now, building something different from the recycled celebrity net worth content you see everywhere else. Hit subscribe. We decode one hidden business empire every single week. In 1977, while still playing quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, Staubach co-founded the Staubach Company with Robert Holloway Jr., a fellow broker from Henry S. Miller. Their first project was building the Hillcrest Oaks office complex in Dallas, which also became their headquarters. The initial staff numbered 6 people. The growth math from there is almost impossible to believe. In 1982, the company negotiated $6 million in leases. By 1985, just 3 years later, that number was $100 million, and the firm ranked number 91 on the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies list with $5.4 million in revenue and 120 employees. But the real turning point came in November 1988. Fort Worth financier Robert Rainwater, the legendary investor behind the Bass family fortune, purchased a 20% stake in the Staubach Company for $1 million. Just $1 million. That single check funded the company's national expansion from $12.7 million in annual revenue into a coast-to-coast operation. When the company settled 20 years later for over $600 million, Rainwater's 20% stake was worth approximately $70 million. A 70 times return on a single investment. It might be one of the most successful early-stage bets in commercial real estate history, and it is almost never mentioned in any Staubach profile. By the mid-2000s, the numbers were staggering. The Staubach company had nearly $400 million in annual revenue, $28 billion across over 7,000 transactions in a single year, 200 million square feet of managed space, 1,600 employees, 70 offices, 3,000 corporate clients. In Dallas alone, the firm held a 52% market share in commercial real estate. Their client list included AT&T, ExxonMobil, JP Chase, Texas Instruments, IBM, PepsiCo, Target, Home Depot, McDonald's, and CVS. For Burlington Northern Santa Fe alone, Staubach's team managed over 10,000 active leases. In 2004, the firm orchestrated the largest sale-leaseback in CVS history. 163 pharmacy properties across 22 states sold for $519 million. Nearly $1 billion in CVS transactions total across multiple deals. But here is the detail that separates Staubach from every other athlete entrepreneur we have ever covered. He systematically gave away equity in his own company. Not a formal employee stock ownership plan. Something more radical. He created a regional co-ownership model where managers of new offices became co-owners of their local operation. Over 3 decades, Staubach distributed so much equity that by the time the biggest deal of his life arrived, he personally owned only about 12% of the company he built. 300 private shareholders held the rest. When you hear that Roger Staubach sold his company for $600 million, his personal take was approximately $78 million. He deposited half into a trust for his 5 children. The hundreds of employee partners received what the Dallas press called life-changing payouts. He also pioneered putting women in executive leadership positions at a commercial real estate firm decades before the industry caught up. That kind of leadership is not something you build with a press release. It is something you build over 30 years. We are building something here at Celebrity Investments. Right now, we are a channel with just 250 subscribers and a big mission. The fact that you are still watching at this point tells us you get it. You are not here for clickbait. You want the real deals, the real numbers, the real strategy behind the names everyone recognizes. If that sounds like your kind of content, like and subscribe. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers who actually care about this stuff, and we would love to have you in that group. Now let us talk about the sale that made Roger Staubach one of the wealthiest athletes on Earth. By the mid-2000s, Staubach's corporate clients were expanding globally, and they wanted one firm handling their real estate needs across continents. He chose Jones Lang LaSalle, the Chicago-based giant with 33,000 employees across 184 offices worldwide. The deal was announced in June 2008. SEC filings show the structure. $80 million in cash and $100 million in JLL stock at closing. $389 million in deferred cash to be paid over 5 years, and up to $114 million more in performance-based earnouts. The base price was $613 million. The maximum value was $727 million. The deal closed on July 11, 2008. That was catastrophic timing. It was just weeks before the financial system collapsed. But the Staubach company's fundamentals weathered the storm. Staubach stayed on as executive chairman of JLL Americas for a full decade, reportedly earning between $10 million and $12 million per year, making him the highest-paid retired athlete in the world at the time. But several major pieces were deliberately excluded from the JLL deal. and those pieces are still generating enormous value today. Staubach Retail Services, co-founded with Chris McGuire in 1986, was kept separate. It rebranded as SRS Real Estate Partners in 2009 and is today the largest independent national retail real estate firm in America. In 2025, SRS hit a record $3.5 billion in capital markets transaction volume. That was a record milestone for the firm. Cypress Equities, the development arm founded in 1995, was also excluded. Today, Cypress reports a portfolio valued at over $5.2 billion, with more than 20 million square feet developed. They recently won the contract to redevelop the 1.2 million square foot Monroeville Mall outside Pittsburgh, and they completed a $74 million shell office tower in New Orleans. But not everything worked. In 2006, Cypress acquired a 440-acre uninhabited island called Royal Island, near Eleuthera in the Bahamas. The plan included the world's first Jack Nicklaus Golf Club, a Montage Hotels resort, and 275 residential estates. Approximately $175 million was raised. 13 golf holes were cleared. Then the 2008 financial crisis destroyed the project. The island was listed for sale in 2024 at just $45 million. That is a brutal loss. There was also Hall of Fame racing. The NASCAR Sprint Cup team Staubach co-founded with Troy Aikman in 2003. They chose car number 96 by multiplying Aikman's jersey number 8 by Staubach's number 12. The team competed from 2006 through 2009 with 0 wins in 139 starts before folding. After stepping down from JLL in 2018, Staubach became an advisor to Staubach Capital, a boutique investment firm run by his son Jeff. Jeff's backstory matters. Before entering real estate, he signed a minor league contract with the New York Yankees and played 2 seasons with the Greensboro Bats. When baseball did not pan out, he joined his father's company, handled over $1 billion in transactions, and eventually ran JLL's South Central region. Staubach Capital now manages approximately $200 million in equity. Then there is Columbus Realty Partners, Staubach's partnership with former Cowboys center Robert Shaw, dating back to 1987. They developed over 13,000 apartment units, with more than $2 billion in total capitalization. Their most visible current project is 12 Cowboys Way, a $62 million luxury tower at the Star in Frisco, named after Staubach's number 12 jersey, built as a joint venture with Jerry Jones. The numbers tell the final story. Roger Staubach earned roughly $600,000 playing football. He turned an off-season side hustle into an empire, a company he sold for over $600 million. He kept additional assets worth hundreds of millions more through SRS Cypress, Columbus Realty, and Staubach Capital. In 2018, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. 3 moves made him different from every athlete who tried and failed. He started building while still playing. He identified a structural flaw in an existing industry and scaled the fix nationally. And he shared ownership to a degree that is almost unheard of in business. 12%. That is what the founder of a $600 million company kept for himself. At 83 years old, Roger Staubach remains the wealthiest NFL player who has ever lived. He earned it not by throwing touchdowns, but by asking one question nobody had the courage to ask. Why are we working for the landlords instead of the people actually paying rent? That question, asked by a colorblind quarterback who needed a second job to feed his family, became a $600 million answer. If you want to see how another athlete turned a completely different industry into a billion-dollar empire nobody saw coming, that video is on screen now. Like and subscribe. We decode celebrity business empires every week.